All right, ladies, so today what we're going to be looking at is the heart. Okay, so just a little bit of general information about the heart. It's about the size of your fist, okay, and it's situated in the middle of your chest. So unlike popular belief where people will put their hand on their heart on the left, it's actually in the middle of the chest, behind that breastbone, okay. And that's why when we perform CPR, we aim for that breastbone. So if you've ever done a first aid course, you don't get told to do your compressions over to the side, you get told to do it in the middle. That's why. It's made up of cardiac muscle. All right, and if you remember what we looked at in cells and tissues, you know that cardiac muscle just doesn't get tired, unlike other types of muscles in your body. And it works in response to electrical signals from pacemaker cells of the heart. Okay, so you've actually got cells which keep a rhythm within there. It's a double system. So what we have is two separate circuits where blood flows. And both circuits start with the heart, and then after that, they're completely different. So the first circuit within our circulatory system takes blood from the heart, okay, and it's from what we call the left side of the heart. Okay, now that's not the left on the diagram, but what we do is we imagine that we've got this in someone's chest. Okay, so if you want to imagine a face looking at you, and then their left arm, their right arm, this is the left side of the heart. It goes from the left side of the heart out to the body, so to the lower body and limbs, to the upper body and limbs, and then it'll come back to the right side of the heart, and that's our first circuit. And the idea of that is that that's how it's going to deliver nutrients and oxygens to the cells, okay, and then bring back any waste products from the cells to the heart. And then the second circuit goes from the heart out to the lungs, okay, so you have a left and a right lungs, so blood will go out to the lungs. And this is where carbon dioxide will get removed, oxygen will go into the blood, and then that oxygen-rich blood will come back to the heart to get put out to this body again. Okay, so it goes from the left side, out to the body, back to the heart, to the right side, out to the lungs, back to the heart, out to the body, etc. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the structure of the heart in a fair bit of detail. A couple of things you need to understand, we'll talk about this in the next section as well, is that blood that's oxygen rich is what's called oxygenated blood. Blood which has carbon dioxide in it is deoxygenated blood, and we want to make sure we keep these separate. There's 4 chambers in our heart. 2 chambers collect blood from the lungs and then pump it out to the body. Okay, so they're the chambers on the left. 2 chambers collect blood from the body and then pump it to the lungs, and they're the chambers on the right. So let's have a look at our heart structure in detail. All right, so a couple of things to understand before we get into the structures within the heart. First up, we look at a heart, we think about this diagram. What we're doing is we're imagining we're looking at it like it's in someone's chest. Okay, so what we would have is the left arm down this side and the right arm this side. So effectively, what this gives us is 2 sides to our heart. And we've got a wall through the middle here that sort of separates off our 2 sides of our heart. This wall through here is what is called the septum. Okay, and that's going to keep our 2 sides of our heart separated. And it's really important because on the left, what we're going to have is what's called oxygenated blood. Okay, so the blood over this side is oxygenated, and I'm going to represent everything that contains or carries oxygenated blood in red. Okay, and that's blood that's come from the lungs that contains oxygen. Okay, and that's blood that's going to go to the body. It's going to go to the cells so that the cells can get oxygen to perform cellular respiration. The right-hand side contains what we call deoxygenated blood. Okay, so that's blood that's coming in from the body. it contains carbon dioxide, okay, and that's going to go to the lungs so that the carbon dioxide can be removed from the blood and replaced with oxygen. So effectively, what we've got is blood coming into the lungs, into the heart, going to the lungs, coming back from the lungs, going to the body, coming back from the body to the heart, going to the lungs, back to the heart, out to the body. So it's a cycle. All right, so the right-hand side is where our blood will come in from the body. So let's have a look at a bit of the blood flow through the heart first up, and then we'll label our parts. It will come in from below and above the heart into the right-hand side. And what we'll find is we've got two chambers. Okay, so we've got our top chamber. It'll pass through our top chamber, through our bottom chamber, and then out of the heart. So these blood vessels here are going to the lungs. Okay, in this case, this side is going to the left-hand side, and it comes out here as well. Okay, to the lungs, and that would take it to the right-hand side of the lungs. Okay, from there, our blood will pick up oxygen, get rid of its carbon dioxide, and it will re-enter our heart on the left-hand side. It'll come into the top chamber first, through our bottom chamber, and then out through our main blood vessel that will take blood to the body. All right. It will come back in this side as well. All right, we'll have a chat about them in a second. All right, so in terms of what we've got, so we've got a 4-chambered heart, 2 top chambers, 2 bottom chambers. Our top chambers are what we call atriums. Okay, so we've got an atrium on the left, an atrium on the right. And they're literally named that. So, right atrium is your atrium on the right, and your left atrium is your atrium on the left. We then have what are called ventricles, okay? So, our left ventricle is on the left side of our heart. Our right ventricle is on the right side of our heart. What you will notice is that between our left and right ventricles and our left and right atrium, so in here, we've got these flat looking structures. Now, they're valves, okay? And our heart contains valves because we want to make sure that once blood goes in a particular direction, it doesn't go backwards, okay? We don't want oxygenated blood getting pumped back into the wrong side of the heart. We need to make sure that blood travels in the correct direction, so we're constantly getting a flow of blood to our cells. Okay, so there's key blood vessels that are incorporated into our structure. So what we have here is blood coming back from the body. Okay, so coming into the top and from the bottom into this right atrium. These come in through what's called the vena cava. Let me use blue instead, sorry. Vena cava. Okay, and you have a vena cava that comes from the bottom and from the top of your body. So in from above the heart, in from below the heart. The vena cava that comes in from the top is what's called the superior vena cava, and from below the heart, it's your inferior vena cava. All right. Blood will then come into the right atrium. The right atrium will contract, push blood into the right ventricle. The right ventricle will contract, push blood out through this vessel to go to the lungs. So what we have here is our pulmonary artery. Now, the pulmonary artery is really special because it's the only artery in the body that actually carries deoxygenated blood. Okay, that will carry blood off to the lungs, okay, left and right side, and then oxygen will get picked up. Oxygenated blood will then come back into the left-hand side of our heart. Okay, so the left side of our heart, we have our veins coming in. Okay, these are what are called our pulmonary veins. Okay, and this is from the left lung, and we've got pulmonary veins over here as well. And they're coming in from the right part of our lungs. So they'll bring blood that's been oxygenated back into the left atrium. The left atrium will contract, push blood into the left ventricle. The left ventricle will contract and push blood out through our main blood vessel to our body, which is called our aorta. Okay, and the aorta is just the main artery for your body. So that's the structures of our lungs. The key ones, if we're going to summarize it, that you need to know that you have a left and a right atrium. You need to know that you have a left and a right ventricle. Okay, you need to know vena cava, aorta, pulmonary artery, and your pulmonary veins. You also need to know that we've got a series of valves to stop blood going back the wrong way. So if you have a look at it, we've got valves between our ventricle and our atrium. We've also got valves between our aorta and our ventricle, so blood doesn't come back through the aorta into the ventricle. We've got a valve between the pulmonary artery and the right ventricle to stop blood coming back in. So this is all just to make sure blood flows in the correct direction. All right, so just to give you another example with a different diagram. So blood comes into the right side of the heart through the vena cava, goes into the right atrium, passes through the valve into the right ventricle, out through the pulmonary artery, goes to the lungs. Comes back to the heart from the lungs through the pulmonary vein, goes into the left atrium, into the left ventricle, and then out through the aorta. The blood that travels through this right side of your heart has been deoxygenated, so it's been out to the body. The oxygen's gone to the cells, it's picked up carbon dioxide and other waste. The blood that's in the left side of the heart has come back from the lungs, so the carbon dioxide's been removed, it's been oxygenated, it's going to carry that oxygen and nutrients out to your cells. So this movement of blood is what your heartbeat is. So your heartbeat is effectively your two atria contracting at the same time. This pushes blood down into the ventricles, and then the two ventricles contract, and that forces blood out of the heart. And if it's in the right-hand side, it'll go to the lungs. If it's in the left-hand side, it goes out to the body. When the heart muscles relax, the atria fill with blood, and there's valves that open and close to make sure that blood flows in the correct direction. So blood doesn't go from your ventricles back into your atria. It doesn't go from your atria back out into the vena cava or into the pulmonary veins. Now, there's obviously issues that can arise with the heart. One of the most common ones is heart disease. So cholesterol is fat that's part of all animal cells. And while it's essential for your health, if it builds up, it can block your arteries. Now, if this cholesterol builds up in your coronary arteries, it's a real problem, because coronary arteries are the ones that supply your heart muscle with oxygen. Okay, so if we don't get enough oxygen to our actual heart muscle, we can get a couple of things. The first thing we can get is what's called angina, and that's a lack of oxygen which causes chest pain. And sometimes people confuse angina with an actual heart attack. A heart attack is where arteries are completely blocked, and that causes part of the heart to die because the cells can't get oxygen. And you can see here, we've got an artery, okay, and we'll talk about the structure of an artery in the next video, but you can see that there's cholesterol built up in that artery, and that's going to affect how much blood can flow through. So that's the heart, girls. Next lesson, we're going to start looking at blood vessels and blood itself.